cross country is changing, and here are a couple bikes that are going to let you choose how fast you want to go. So if we're going to talk about cross-country bikes, I think that Orbea is really one of the leaders in that segment. They've been around for a long time doing this. I remember back whenever they were sponsoring Julian Absalon and Jean-Christophe Perrault, and through the years you've had Allison Dunlap and Katarina Nash, and now we've got Catherine Prindrel out there on their bikes. And so there's a lot of pedigree with Orbea as a cross-country racing company. And then whenever we look at the sport of cross-country mountain bike racing, man, has it evolved. I remember whenever I was a racer back in the day, and hey, there are people out there sweeping the corners. I mean, it was road racing on dirt. A lot of the courses were not real challenging, and that's not the case anymore. You look at the modern World Cup cross-country course now, and it's gnarly. So that is really changing the way that manufacturers are designing bikes nowadays. The OIZ has been through a number of generations, and the first bike was really light, really steep, and really nervous handling. It was kind of fun how agile it was, but they have seen the need to make this bike more capable, make it able to do more different things, and that's what this new platform is all about. So this bike over here that you see on the left, this is the OIZ M-Team, and it is built up with the new Shimano XTR 9100. It's a no-holds-barred bike. It weighs 22.2 pounds. And it comes set up as a 100 millimeter cross-country racing thoroughbred. And this is the bike if you're racing at an elite level and you want to save every ounce and you want it to be super efficient, super fast, this is the path that you're going down. Then this bike over here on the right, this is the OIZ M10 TR. So this is the trail bike version. This is the bike where you say, man, I want to do some racing, but I also want to do some marathon racing. I want to go out and do some big, long epics, and I want to be able to ride some gnar on this bike. And we talk about down country bikes. This is the down country version. And so the way that they've done that is what they're calling a two-stroke strategy. So both bikes have the same eye-to-eye length shock, but there's a different stroke length. So this bike with a 40 millimeter stroke length is going to give you 100 millimeters of travel. This bike with a 45 millimeter stroke length is going to give you 120 millimeters of travel. And then you're going to pair the appropriate fork. This bike has a 100 millimeter travel fork. So by doing that, you're getting a 75-degree seat tube angle and a 69-degree head tube angle. So it's going to be a little bit more modern, more contemporary geometry than what they did on the last generation of OIZ. I guess the idea here is we're going to give you a little steeper seat tube angle, just like people are doing with trail bikes, to make this bike climb well and to really put you up on top of the pedals to make power. And the 69-degree head tube angle is going to make it capable of going out and tackling a modern World Cup cross-country course. This bike over here gets, instead of a 32 millimeter step cast fork, it gets a 34 millimeter step cast fork, and that fork has 120 millimeters of travel. So the idea here, we're going to raise the head tube just a little bit. The rest of the geometry in the back of the bike is going to stay the same, but by raising that head tube angle, we're going to a 74-degree seat tube angle, so still steeper than they've done in the past, but we're getting a 68-degree head tube angle, and so that's going to make the bike feel a little bit more stable in the rough stuff. So if you're out doing a marathon race, out on a long day on the bike, it's not going to feel quite as nervous. You're not going to pay attention and correct every line change, and it's going to maybe get you out of a little more trouble than this one would. For me personally, I ride one of these bikes. I prefer the 120 millimeter travel version. It's a little more playful, big bike, burly, but it still feels really light and efficient, and like you would expect from a cross-country race bike. I can't see any reason why you couldn't race this out on a pretty serious course. It was pretty serious competition in the 120 millimeter travel version. It's really still a very fast, efficient bike. Now, when they redesign these bikes, they have changed the suspension leverage ratio a little bit, but the idea is you're still riding really high in the travel. They only recommend about 15% sag with this bike, and they've designed it to give up a little bit of that suppleness at the top of the stroke in order to get a lot of platform and to get a bike that pedals really efficiently. So it rides a lot differently than a 4 or 5-year-old travel full suspension bike would. It feels like a race bike should. I think that I should talk about some of the features in the frame that are new, that are really cool. The first thing is the inline adjustment that they're doing with the rear shock cable that comes through. So it comes in near the head tube, and you'll see super clean. You can't even tell that this bike has a lockout, but it does. There's a push to unlock system here that's going to lock out both the fork and the rear shock at the same time, and they've done it in a really clean, elegant fashion. When you move back toward the back of the bike, they've gone through and reconfigured this link at the top. So now you've got an all carbon linkage that has taken 70 or 80 grams out versus the old alloy and steel link that they had before. They do use a pivotless design in the rear triangle, and the idea there is to shave every last bit of weight and to eliminate the idea of flex at the secondary pivot. So you're going to be depending on a little bit of flex in the seat stay to provide your secondary pivot. And that keeps it's really lightweight. The chainstays are nice and wide, so there's not a lot of flex going on down there. A really nice, robust bearing pivot. All this, it's still super light. This frame comes in at 1,600 grams without the rear shock. So even with the rear shock in play, you're looking at about a 4.5 pound frame, which is where hardtail frames were not very long ago. Now the TR version, all the bikes at the top end of the OIZ range use the same frame. They're using the same monocoque layup. But like I said, we're using, instead of a 40 millimeter stroke length, we're going to 45 millimeter stroke length, but we're still using that same 190 millimeter eye-to-eye length. So whenever we configure this frame with the 34 step cast fork instead of a 32 step cast fork, 120 millimeters of travel instead of 100 millimeters of travel, we're raising the head tube of the bike. So now, instead of being at 69 for a head angle and 75 for a seat angle, we're going to 68 for a head angle and 74 for a head angle. So this bike is going to be a little bit more trail bikey. It's going to be something that's going to be a little bit more capable and something that you'd want to just go out on some big epics with. This bike doesn't have quite the same level of kit as the full XTR bike. So while that bike weighs 22.2 pounds, this bike's going to come in just a little over 25 pounds. 25.3 is what I weighed this one at. I ride the same bike, built up with a little bit lighter weight kit. Even with real tires and a dropper post, I was able to get it in under 24 pounds. So I love the choice that you have with Orbea. They have their Mayo program. You can go in there if you wanted this full race bike, but you want a dropper post, you can configure it that way. If you would like to go with this bike, but you want to change some specs around, that's definitely doable. You know, if you want to go to a lighter weight wheel set or something like that to make this feel a little bit more racy. That is available through their Mayo program. You can go and check it out at orbea.com. You can reach out to one of our gear advisors here. They can help you, walk you through the process and show you how you can get your own custom personal bike. And while you're at it, for no additional charge, you can pick your color scheme. You can go through and do that at no additional charge. So that's a great feature that Orbea offers. Thanks for watching the video. If you have any questions I haven't answered, please reach out to one of our gear advisors. Remember that all the bikes that we ship at Jenson USA come in a box that will allow you to get out on the trail in less than 3 minutes. So thanks and keep pedaling.